In 1999, a group of senior French military officers, defense officials, and scientists published a classified report on UFOs. Not for the public, for the President of France and the Prime Minister. The report was called Comité, the Committee for In-Depth Studies. Its members included generals, engineers, physicists, and former heads of major defense institutions. These were not hobbyists. These were the people France trusted to think about national security. And what they concluded about UFOs was unlike anything any government had officially put on paper before. The report begins with something that took decades to say out loud. The physical reality of these objects, they write, is almost certain, not possible, not probable, almost certain. Objects with remarkable flight performances, completely noiseless, apparently operated by intelligent beings. The word apparently is doing a lot of work in that sentence. But the sentence itself is coming from a group of senior French defense officials in an official report addressed to the head of state. What convinced them? Cases, dozens of them, documented, investigated, cross-referenced. In 1956 over Lakenheath, England, a UFO was tracked simultaneously by ground radar, air traffic control radar, and the human eye. The RAF scrambled a Venom fighter. The pilot acquired the target visually and on his radar. Then the object moved, not away from the plane, but behind it. It followed the fighter for 10 minutes. The pilot tried every maneuver he knew, steep climbs, dives, hard turns. Nothing worked. The object held position behind him the entire time, as if it were simply waiting for him to give up. He did. He returned to base with low fuel and no answers. The case was described by investigators as one of the most disturbing UFO incidents known. It remains officially unidentified. In 1957, over the south-central United States, a U.S. Air Force RB-47 reconnaissance aircraft tracked an object for over an hour across multiple states. The object appeared on visual sighting, on the aircraft's onboard radar, and on ground radar simultaneously. When the aircraft changed speed, the object matched it. When the aircraft banked, the object responded. Ground control confirmed they were tracking two objects, the RB-47 and something else, maintaining a constant 18 kilometers from the aircraft across the entire flight path. The case appears in official U.S. Air Force records as unidentified. It has stayed that way. Tehran, September 1976. The Iranian Air Force scrambles an F-4 Phantom toward a luminous object over the capital. When the jet closed to 45 kilometers, every instrument on the aircraft failed simultaneously. Radio, intercom, flight systems, all of it. The pilot turned back. The moment he changed course, his instruments came back. A second F-4 was sent. Same result. When it reached 45 kilometers, the object accelerated to maintain the exact distance. At one point, a smaller object detached from the main craft and moved directly toward the F-4. The pilot attempted to fire a missile. His weapons panel locked. The smaller object returned to the main craft. The Defense Intelligence Agency obtained documents on this incident through the Freedom of Information Act. Those documents confirmed what the Iranian pilots reported. The DIA categorized it as an outstanding report. But the cases don't stop there. In France, a woman in Trans-en-Provence reported a craft landing in her field in 1981. Investigators from the French government's own UFO research unit went to the site. They found physical traces in the soil, a circular mark, ground compression consistent with a heavy object, and biochemical changes in the plants nearby that could not be explained by any conventional cause. The French government's scientific analysis confirmed the traces were real. The cause was never identified. In Russia, at a missile base in 1982, multiple witnesses, including military officers, reported a disc-shaped craft hovering over the installation. One officer reported that during the encounter, the launch control panel activated on its own. The launch sequence for nuclear missiles initiated without any human input. It stopped on its own as well. That detail appears in a KGB document later obtained by researchers. A UFO hovered over a nuclear missile base. The weapons briefly showed signs of activating, and then everything returned to normal. No one has ever explained it. Comité also addressed something that most official reports carefully avoid. Why, after decades of evidence, has the response from governments and scientific institutions been so consistently dismissive? They had an answer for that too. It isn't stupidity. It isn't cowardice. It's something more fundamental. To admit that intelligent beings from elsewhere have been operating in proximity to our planet is to admit that humanity is not the most advanced thing in its corner of the universe. That everything science has built, every framework, every model, every assumption, might look infantile compared to what is out there. The researchers who would have to confront that prospect, they write, might not really want to lend a hand in this effort. The cover-up, if there is one, may not be a conspiracy. It may simply be the institutional reluctance of people who aren't ready for what the answer actually means. This wasn't just a French concern. The report quoted General Douglas MacArthur, speaking at West Point in 1962. He said, and these are his words, "You now face a new world, a world of change. We deal now, not with things of this world alone, but with the illimitable distances and as yet unfathomed mysteries of the universe, of ultimate conflict between a united human race and the sinister forces of some other planetary galaxy." A five-star general, commander of Allied forces in the Pacific, standing at the United States Military Academy and describing the next great conflict as one between humanity and something from another galaxy. In 1962. That speech is in the public record. It has always been in the public record. There is one more thread in this document that is easy to miss. Attached to the Cometa report is a letter from a woman named Carol Rosen. She was the spokesperson for Wernher von Braun during the last years of his life. Von Braun was the architect of the American space program, the man who built the Saturn V rocket that took humans to the moon. Rosen says that in his final years, von Braun told her something. He said the justifications for building weapons in space would come in sequence. First the Soviet threat, then terrorists, then nations of concern, then asteroids. And finally the last card, extraterrestrials. He called it the extraterrestrial threat. And he told her it was all a lie. That letter is in this document, filed alongside the conclusions of French generals. Make of that what you will. What makes the Cometa report different from everything that came before it is what the authors were willing to say directly. After reviewing all of the evidence, they concluded that one hypothesis, and one alone, accounts for the totality of the facts: the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Not as speculation, not as a possibility to consider. In their exact words, by far the best scientific hypothesis. A French Defense Committee, writing to their head of state, stating formally that extraterrestrial visitors are the most scientifically defensible explanation for what militaries around the world have been tracking for decades. The report was submitted to the French government in 1999. It was never formally acted upon. It sat in files for years. And then in May 2026, NASA handed it to the U.S. Department of War, which published it on war.gov alongside hundreds of other declassified documents under President Trump's Pursue directive. You can read it yourself. Every page, every case, every recommendation. The link is in the comments. The authors asked for international cooperation, for formal diplomatic approaches to the United States, for a dedicated unit at the highest level of the French state. None of that happened. What happened instead is that the report became a document in an archive. And now it's here. And you're watching it, which is probably not what the authors had in mind. But it's something, and more files are coming, every few weeks. From war.gov.